This video is going to be in two parts. First of all, I'm going to talk about burglary and why and how we might be prepared for this. And second, I'll discuss preparedness for a home invasion during a societal breakdown and the difference between the two. Now, towards the end, I have some channel updates and announcements, so stay tuned for that. Hi, this is Everyday Prepper. Welcome to the channel. The reason I wanted to make this video was because of some recent stuff that I've seen on the news. Now, a lot of you may be aware that there was a chap called Abdul Azidi. He's been on the news quite a lot for attacking someone that was apparently his partner and her children in London, in Clapham, I believe it was, with some kind of chemical, alkaline chemical that caused her sort of life-changing injuries. The reason I'm talking about him is because in the incident, he damaged himself as well and burnt half the side of his face off. And the police were trying to catch him. There were hundreds of police up and down the country trying to catch this guy. Shortly afterwards, he was spotted in a pub having a pint, quite blatantly, not covering his face or anything like that at all. He was also spotted and filmed on CCTV in a Tesco store buying a bottle of water. And I think there was a couple of other CCTV images of him just wandering around. There was no attempt to cover up his face. And, with hundreds of police officers, it just made me think, how on earth did they not catch this guy? Now, conveniently, they've now suggested that he's jumped into the Thames, and that's the end of the case. And I think they wanted to get rid of this case because it did highlight why on earth this guy was still in the country and how on earth he got his asylum agreed. Now, that's not what this video is about. What that highlighted to me was that there's people around in this country that are prepared to do the most awful things. It could be just walking among us. Now, one of those awful things is burglary. So I looked into some of the details about burglary in the UK. From a point of view of preparedness, burglary is something, it's not a coronal mass ejection, it's not an EMP, it's not nuclear war. There's plenty of all that going on in the news, but burglary is something that happens every day. Now, this channel's called Everyday Prepper. As far as I'm concerned, it's also about preparing for stuff that happens every day. And in this country, in the UK, last couple of years, there's been 500 odd burglaries per day. Which might not seem a lot when you've got however many households in the UK, but it's got to happen to someone, and it's easy to think it could always happen to someone else. So the reason I'm covering this is just from a preparedness point of view. Wouldn't it be awful to you've got your gas masks, you've got your gaffer tape, you've got your food stashed, and you got all the gear to cover you in the event of some absolute catastrophe or grid down situation, and then you get burgled. And they don't even come across your stash. It's just the fact of having someone in your house. So that's why I wanted to cover it today. So it's also important to note the police response time for burglaries seems to be getting worse. So the average is very, very hard to pinpoint and very hard to get actual figures. So I've got kind of averages across the country, and it does vary wildly depending on where you are. And obviously the more burglaries occur in densely populated more burglaries occur in densely populated areas rather than sparsely populated areas. But on average, the police response time can range from anything, response time to a burglary can range from anything from 26 minutes up to 18 hours. Now, when you consider that the average burglary takes about 10 minutes in and out, then the police aren't going to make it in time. So really, you've got to have at least a plan, or at least have thought about what you're going to do in the event of someone being in your house. Now, you may be lucky in that you won't be in the house at the same time, or lucky for the burglar, they won't be in your house at the same time. But when you consider that 58% of burglaries occur with you home, or with somebody in the house, then that's particularly worrying. So you've got to anticipate that you've got more than a 50% chance of you being in the house if somebody came in, if you were burgled. So how would you deal with that? Now, before we go into that, here's some more stats for you. That apparently 7 out of 10, or more than 7 out of 10 burglary cases in the UK are dropped by police. And the reason being is, if they can't catch some guy who's got half his face burnt off, totally identifiable, it's all over the news, everyone should have, the majority of people do watch TV, I don't, but live TV, they check the news every now and again. People should have been aware of this guy and they could not catch him, which I just find really, really odd. So yeah, I would suggest the reason that 7 out of 10 cases are dropped is just because they're just never going to get the person. Quite often they'll be covered up. They'll have face masks on or hoodies or what have you, and you're just never going to be able to identify them even from CCTV. And also, out of the cases that are not dropped, apparently 4%, less than 4% even of domestic burglary cases result in an offender being charged, and only 3% of all cases lead to a conviction. So it looks like that the police will only charge someone if they pretty much know they're going to get a conviction, and that's why more than 7 out of 10 cases are dropped. So there's all the stats. They probably vary quite wildly around the country, but that's kind of the average. And I've taken that from various news articles, various police reports, and also from locksmiths and alarm providers. And the other thing to note is that about 60% of burglaries take place between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. So generally at night. I probably shouldn't mention this really, but I had a friend a while back said to me, he's got some elderly parents and don't live too far from me. And they were burgled and they had no insurance, no alarm system or anything else. I was really concerned when I heard about it. They were okay. But he turned around to me and just said, it's just stuff, don't worry about it. It's all well and good, but the traumatic experience, I know that if I was to have somebody, I've been burgled once. It wasn't actually my house. I was house sitting for somebody, some friends up in London, which is what makes it even worse. And we got back. Luckily we didn't really come across them, but they had looted the place. And what happened was when the couples whose house that we were looking after, they came back and we went through the police and everything else, and they got all the stuff replaced through their insurance. And the same burglars apparently came back a couple of months later, and took it all again. That was traumatic enough for me, and that wasn't even my own house. If I was to wake up in the middle of the night, and that's why I've been thinking about this, because if I was to wake up in the middle of the night and hear someone downstairs, I hear noises all the time. My hearing's pretty good. If I woke up to knowing that someone was downstairs in my house, I would assume it's an adult male or two, and that they are intent on hurting my family. So I would respond accordingly. When I was discussing this with my wife a couple of days ago, she said, well, that's all well and good. You're going to go and get your stab vest on, you'll arm yourself accordingly and go downstairs and sort them out, which is great. But what if I'm in the house on my own? It made me think, there'll be women living alone, or women alone in the house, when they're burgled. What are they supposed to do? Are they going to take on an attacker? Well, unless you're trained and you're feeling gung-ho enough to go down and tackle them, are you really going to do that? So some kind of plan is necessary. I wouldn't necessarily expect someone who has a disability or someone who's fairly frail or elderly to go and tackle an attacker. So there has to be some kind of plan that's appropriate for your situation. So this isn't designed to alarm anyone or get anyone stressed out at all. It's just something I thought that might be just overlooked from a preparedness point of view, because we're all preparing for the whole SHTF and the whole world going to pot, whereas this is kind of an individual thing that why wouldn't you want to just be at least mentally prepared for something like this happening, especially when it happens so much. So first of all, it starts with not making yourself an attractive prospect. Being careful who you speak to, careful what you share on social media. It's not like the 80s where you leave your doors open. I know there are some communities and some areas where you can feel comfortable leaving your door open, but again, I don't think any community is immune from this. So keeping doors locked, checking your locks as well. I'm a pretty good lock picker, but I can't get into my front and back doors because I changed the barrels on there to anti-lock picking barrels, which are the kind of European standard now, and they're very good. There will always be someone who is an expert at getting in. Locksmiths will be able to pick them, and I'm not a locksmith. But it's about stacking the odds in your favour. If you've got a standard Yale lock, they're really easy to pick. Have a deadbolt on your door as well. Pretty simple to install, but they're very hard to get through. Now, where I live is not a particularly high crime neighbourhood, but I do have cameras all over the house just because I love the tech. I've got the app. It'll work on my router. If the internet goes down, the router will have a LAN network so that I can still check on my cameras. I can still get alerts from the app. It will still work. And I'll put a link in the description to the Tapo system that I use. And the good thing about it is you can add cameras and as you go. You don't have to buy a whole system in one go if you don't want to. So yeah, first port of call I think would be to just try and stop them getting in. Don't give them a reason to get in and make it difficult for them to get in. And importantly, you know, in all of this is staying as fit as you can and fit and mentally fit. The more mentally prepared you are, the less likely you are to panic. Now, bearing in mind the police response time being so useless when it comes to burglaries. You know, most burglaries, as I said, take about 10 minutes in and out. And police response time minimum is going to be 20-30 minutes on average. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm sure some of them do turn up fairly quickly, especially if they're in the neighbourhood. But you know, where I am, we don't even have a police station in my town. So if you can have neighbours that you can call, that you get along with, you know, and you could call them in the middle of the night, they'll be able to get there within seconds, if not minutes, much quicker than any police, and they'll be able to come in from a different angle as well. So could potentially benefit from that. So if your plan is not to go and tackle whoever might be in your house, assuming you wake up and hear them, what kind of plan would you have? You know, let me know in the comments whether you've actually thought about this. Will you barricade yourself in? Have you got locks on all the upstairs rooms or the rooms where you sleep? Have you got locks on those doors? I haven't. Probably should. Will you escape out of a window? That's something when my kids were a lot younger. We had a plan to, we told them that it was a fire plan, but it was also in case, this is when I started out prepping and I was worried about societal breakdown and someone coming into the house. We arranged to jump out the windows and made sure that there was some stuff that we could drop onto as we went out the window. And that was our plan, and the kids thought that that was a fire plan. So we tell them the fire plan is being implemented, and that's what they would know to do. So yeah, if that's your plan, you're going to get out. What about pets? Are you going to take the pets with you? You're going to lower them down out of a window on a rope, or are you going to leave them? These are all things that need to be at least mentally just considered or thought about so that you're not panicking at the time. Now, as far as me, arming myself accordingly, putting my stab vest on, maybe wearing my motorcycle leathers and then going downstairs to tackle the situation. I'm trained in weapons handling and how to disarm somebody with a weapon. Not everyone's going to be in that situation, and I don't know quite how I'd react in that situation. I might just freeze. It hasn't happened to me yet. I hope that I wouldn't. But also, if I heard that there was like more than 2 people downstairs, then I would probably consider jumping out the window instead. Now, although the law is unlikely to arrive during the burglary, it's how you deal with the burglary that could end up with you on the wrong side of the law. There's loads of videos about this and about what you can and can't do in the form of self-defense, and I'd recommend you to just check those out. There's a guy called Black Belt Barrister who is excellent, covers that. He is a lawyer, and he covers that in a lot more detail than I can here. Now, if you're watching this and you're new to the channel, my name is Steve, and I'm, I suppose, what's known as a prepper. I make videos about preparedness and outdoor activities. And so if you're interested in that kind of content, then please consider subscribing so you can see more info like this. Now, I wanted to talk about the difference with societal breakdown and, people trying to get into your house for various reasons. It's slightly different from burglary. Now, there are some pros and cons, if you could call it that. And what I mean by that is, first of all, you've got, I suppose the pros would be that you'd have more time, I would have thought. With burglaries, people are going to be quite discreet. They're going to be very, very quick because they don't want to get caught for obvious reasons. They'll know the police response times in your area, and they'll know exactly what they're after. Whereas if we've got a societal breakdown, you've got people will probably be going systematically from house to house. So you may have time, you might be able to look out the window down your street and see this happening, and you might have time to respond. The flip side of that is the negative is that if that was happening, then it's likely that law and order has broken down completely. And I suppose you could work this in your favour because you'll probably get away with using a lot more force than you normally would during a scenario where there is still law and order, but you're also going to be met with more violence as well. The other problem is if you've got people literally looting houses systematically, then you've got a situation where people are going to be hungry. and that's why they're doing it. So if you've got a complete breakdown of society, you've not got any food availability in supermarkets, so you're already going to be in survival mode. You're going to be using your preps, and I guess it's the rule of three. 3 weeks without food, you can survive for 3 weeks without food. Well, I estimate after 2 weeks without food, people are going to be absolutely desperate. Even a week. I've never gone for a week without food. I've gone for 2 days max, I think, without food when I was a lot younger. So God knows what that would feel like now, after a week. And so certainly after a week or 2 weeks, I reckon you'd have things breaking down very, very quickly. So again, what would be your plan? Do let me know in the comments. So be careful how you respond in the comments, by the way. YouTube doesn't like certain wording, especially when we're talking about violence. But part of the plan might be barricading yourself in. Well, barricading yourself in during a burglary might just be locking your bedroom door. Barricading yourself in during a societal breakdown and people systematically going house to house looting might mean, if you've got time, you may have a little bit more time, literally hacking up your stairs, removing the stairs and holding up upstairs so that you can defend your house from upstairs. And again, when you're at this point, you probably would have already decided way before this whether you're going to be bugging out or bugging in. Bugging out, well, we'll have to cover in another video. That's another big subject. And I also plan to cover in a bit more detail on what societal breakdown might look like. So the reason I put these two scenarios together is because the lines between looting and a societal breakdown and common burglary are blurring gradually, what with police response times and police apathy just getting worse towards burglaries. Crime is increasing year on year. Don't be fooled by the recent news articles that have come out saying, there's crime's gone down or burglaries have gone down by 30% because of lockdowns. They're just trying to justify that element of control. It's utter rubbish. When you look at stats from locksmiths and alarm fitters, the burglaries apparently have gone up by 6% since last year. So it's on the way up. Each year, the risk of burglary increases. So again, living without law and order, that's something that I'll probably cover in a lot more depth in another video. Now, quick update. The channel's recently got 1,000 subscribers. I'm absolutely bowled over. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed and is watching my videos. I really, really appreciate it. Didn't believe for a minute that this would happen so quickly. And I also appreciate the engagement in the comments. I've had some great conversations with some of you, and I can see that you're all communicating with each other. It feels like a real sort of community. So you guys know who you are. So going forward, I do plan to make some more outdoor videos. Hopefully that will spice things up a little bit. I'm going to try and get into some wild camping this year. So I've got my first camping trip booked for this week. The weather looks dreadful, but it's it's in a campsite, so I know it's not wild camping, but it's just a first off to get my gear tested, make sure that everything's okay, and then I'm going to start finding some hedgerows and fields and woodland a bit further afield. But I wanted to start experiencing some more hardship than a nice cozy bed. And I figured that the more I get out and about, camping overnight, listening to scary noises, that kind of thing, get some adrenaline running, and the more that happens, the more I'll be used to it, the more I'll be calmer in unexpected situations. So the future of the channel, I will do, as I say, more outdoor stuff. I'm also going to break down prepping into lots and lots of different. It's a really big subject, but there's only so much you can talk about with prepping. But what won't happen is I won't turn into a news channel. I have noticed that there are a lot of prepper channels that when they started out, they were talking about prepping and everything about it, survival, bushcraft, that kind of stuff, and then it seems that they've just run out of things to talk about, and so they end up just being literally newsreaders responding to the news and also projecting all the fear mongering that the news does. That won't happen here. Preparedness to me is about being prepared and not having to stress about what's happening. It's literally if I can take a subject and I can think about it from a preparedness point of view, if it's not relevant, it doesn't get in a video. Or if everybody thinks it's relevant, then I'll say why it's not relevant, and I'll tell you. So what I do plan to do is break down a lot of different aspects of preparedness, food storage, water filtration. I've covered a couple of bits on solar panels, I probably haven't done that very well. They're quite technical and it's really hard to get the filming right, but I am going to work on that. I'm also going to invest in some better equipment so we can get some more quality videos. I'll be investing in various bits of camping gear and outdoor stuff as well, so I can test those on camera. And also for full transparency, you may see the odd button appear on the channel or links to some of the items that I've been talking about in videos, and those are generally Amazon links, which are affiliate links. So if you do click on those and purchase anything through that, I may get a very small commission at no extra cost to you, and all it does is just supports the channel. So that's what those are there for, just so you know. So I hope you found the subject matter of this video interesting. Let me know in the comments what sort of plans you have for events like this. If any, have you thought about it? Are you bothered? And I believe that the more prepared we are, the less we have to worry. In the meantime, thanks very much again for watching, and stay prepared.